So, so yeah, we have technology issues. I left my notes at home, so I just kind of rewrote them a little bit, and you're getting what you're getting tonight. So, and the funny thing is, so my brother is a pastor of a pretty large church, and so I asked him for feedback, and I want to improve because this isn't my natural thing whatsoever. And so he watched the whole thing, and he's like, you know what? You didn't even need your notes. You know that. And you're so much more natural when you're not by your notes. So, you know, like God kind of maybe did that on purpose tonight, but I still have my notes, so I'm still cheating a little bit. So tonight we are on the final part to the to the See for Yourself series. And so we have gone through Come and See, Taste and See, Go and See, Test and See, and tonight we're doing Look and See. And when Troy told me the name of tonight, I was like, can I do that one? He's like, sure. And then he's on a solitude retreat, which is really good for him because then he's starting to put together next series and all of that. So it worked out really good for both of us. But the reason that I wanted to do that was because, like, what came to my mind was when you think look and see, it's all about God, you know, like just watching and seeing, just looking around you and seeing what God is doing. And I love that. And so that's what we're going with tonight, because as I started putting a message together, God just said, you know what? Tonight is that night where you need to have people share stories. So you guys are participating tonight.
Oh man.
Yeah. So keep that in mind. But I'm going to share the first story of the night of something that was a look and see thing. And I want you to be praying and listening, obviously, too. But I want you to be praying about your stories. And whether you want to call them miracle stories or what, doesn't matter. But what are some of your God stories that you have seen God work and show up in little details or whatever, or big details? And so I'm going to start with a story that happened 2 years ago. And this was going into Mission Trip 2016. And I knew God was telling me to do a very uncomfortable mission trip for me, which was beach reach. And that's a mission trip down to Panama City, Florida, where you go out and you street evangelize to usually pretty intoxicated people. And number one, street evangelism is very scary to everybody, pretty much, because you don't know these people, and usually relationships bring people closer to God than anything. So this is something that was really outside my comfort zone, but I knew that this was something that God was telling me you need to do right now in your life. And so I was like, okay, but I don't know who's going to sign up for that, because that's not like, you know, a service project trip that can easily sign up, yeah, let's go adventure and explore. This is going to be hardcore, like people that just are depending on God to show up and give us the courage to do what we need to do. So what Beach Reach did was every night there would be vans, 60 vans, going out all over Panama City, and there would be a headquarter place. Like, we would give out cards the very first day so people knew to call in to this headquarters, and we would name our van, and then they would send out that particular van to go pick these people up. And from 10 p.m. until 3 in the morning, that's what we did every night. Take people from bar to bar and clubs, you know, and all that, wherever they wanted to go. And the goal was to just, as fast as possible, start asking the deeper questions about life. Because, you know, if people are down there trying to escape reality, that's what they're there for. They're there to be with their friends and just go and like fill the void of what's going on in their life, more than likely. I mean, for the most part, that's what you're gonna find. And so the longer we went into the week, the more receptive people were, because they were getting to that point where partying is kind of annoying, and they're getting tired of it, you know? And so the other part of this ministry was in the morning, from like 11 until 1 or 2, there would be a pancake breakfast that people, obviously, who were up super late would want to sleep in and then come to. And so that would give us a place to, if we built good relationships the night before, we could invite them back for pancakes in the morning. And they were always like, free food, of course, we're going to be there. So it was really cool. It was a good outreach in that way. So number one, I'm going to back up to when I started going into this mission trip. I knew God was calling me to do it. So first thing on my mind was I'm gonna get a guy co-leader with me, so that we at least have like a safety in a guy going, and hopefully we can get more guys to go. And I wanted it to be somebody who was, who it would challenge. And so, because my first thought would be Grant, but I knew this wouldn't challenge him, and I was hoping he would come and be like a good apprentice to us and everything, but I thought of this guy, Brian, and so I went to campus, sat down with him, told him my reasoning behind doing this trip, and left it in his hands to pray about it. I got back in my car, and the song "No Longer a Slave to Fear" was playing, and I was like, Brian's gonna say yes. That was number one, and he instantly said yes, like within the week. So that was the first thing. And then literally up until the day, like the week that we left, God was just filling in the gaps of who was gonna come. And it ended up being 5-5, girls and guys. And one of them was a guy that lived with us, and it was easy as coming up the stairs, he was doing his homework, and I was like, hey Judd, wanna go on a trip? And he's like, where to? Told him the details, he's like, okay, just a second. He calls his mom. Hey mom, can I go do this? Okay, all right, thanks, bye. I'm in. I'm like, all right, John. He ended up meeting his future wife on that trip too, I'm just saying, so that was a fun little fact. And then there was a guy, Jesse. We were meeting in the alumni lounge for his house one night, and Jesse was over in the library, and he saw what was going on in the alumni lounge, and he's like, I'm gonna check that out next week. So he came, he heard about Panama City, and he signed up. First night being at his house. I was like, this kid is pretty awesome. And so he did phenomenal on that trip too. But biggest miracle story of my life happened in Florida. And so I'll try to make this quicker, but on the 4th day that we were down there, I was at the pancake breakfast, and I learned pretty early on during the week that pancake breakfast didn't mean that you had to talk to the spring breakers that were down there. Those were the people that came down to like get the van rides and all of that. But the workers, the other 400 to 500 people that were down there doing the same thing as us, needed just as much encouragement. So I took that time to just ask God, who do you want me to be with? And this morning happened to be really slow. And so that's what he ended up using, was encouraging people that were already doing it. But in the last 15 minutes, which made my team have to wait for me forever, but in the last 15 minutes, I sat down with this table of international students. And at this point, international students were kind of another unknown in my life too. Another area that was a little bit more, I don't really know what to say, I don't know much about other countries, all of that, so it was a little nerve-wracking, but started talking to them, and I just started asking questions and loving them where they were at. And because of that, they asked me so many good questions about why we were down there. And because of that, it led into my passion of why we were doing what we were doing. And there was a guy across the table who literally, like it almost brought tears to my eyes because I just saw him as I was talking to the three girls. I saw his face, and his face was just so longing for the passion that I had and for the love that I have for God and like the fulfillment that was in my life that was missing in his. And it just broke my heart, like for him and the longing that I saw. And then, silly me, afterwards, I did not get a picture. And ahead of time, the people in charge of this thing told us get pictures, get names, whatever you can to follow up. I didn't get anything. And I realized that later and started praying and asking God, please don't ever let me forget the face of that guy at the end of the table. I don't know what his name is, but I want to remember that face as somebody who is lost and just needs to know you. So then, next, fast forward to our very last day of ministry. We go out in the vans that night, and our team is divided, like half has to go out and walk and do street ministry, the other half stays in the van, and as people get in, then we talk to them. I was not supposed to be in the van that night. Like, for some reason, I ended up staying in the van, and we were going around. We went to the first stop where we were supposed to pick people up. It was a no-show. Went to the next stop. There was a no-show. We had none of those all week long until tonight. There were two. We go to the third one, and by this point, I'm like, this is a really slow night. So I started reading Braden's notes that he was taking on like different stories and all of that. And so I wasn't even paying attention. And then the guys got out, and they're like the doorkeepers, so they were like checking, making sure we have the right people and everything, and then they opened the door and let people in. Guess who was there? Not the guy, but the girls who could lead me to a picture of the guy. I know. So I just looked and I was like, it's you! Like I just screamed it. And they were probably like, she's weird. But then I was like, get in. And then I was like telling them the whole story and like even more like about my God. I didn't care what they thought. I was just like, you have to understand, there are 60 vans out there, thousands of people, and we get you. You cannot tell me that my God is not doing something here with all these details, even the no-shows to allow us to get to that third position, to open the door and have my friends be there. So I did have pictures, and I was going to show you, like, we took pictures that night, and then I looked the guy up, and I have his face, so I'll always remember that too, but that just blew me away, how God cares so much about the details. And just fast forward, that trip led me into the courage to come back to campus and start loving on international students, and not on purpose, but God threw people into my life during Crave that year, and from that point, I just fell in love with the Pakistanis and more, and it's crazy how you see like the hand of God in different areas of what He's doing, and so I want to leave time for you guys. So that's my first look and see story, and I'm hoping that there are more that you guys want to share.
That's kind of worked out. So I wrote this in a blog on our Phnom Penh, Fishers of Men Phnom Penh blog post, so you can look at that. But we were in Cambodia, and what we were doing was reading with college students. So reading out of the book of Luke, but it was in like a workbook format, so that it wasn't as intimidating, like to see the Bible. And I was reading with this girl, actually these two girls, that spoke really little English, so it was really difficult to communicate. One spoke a little bit better than the other, but they came together. One was supposed to come at 3 o'clock, and one was supposed to come at 4, and they both showed up at 3:45. So it's just like, okay, we're not really supposed to read with two people, but like I didn't want to turn them away. So they both sat down with me, and it ended up being like the best reading session I'd had the whole time, because we were sitting and we were reading out of the book of Luke when Jesus was talking about sorting the grain. And it was like a metaphor for sorting out, Christians and non-Christians. And so we were talking about, well, like, what's the good grain, what's the bad grain, and what does that mean? And so we kind of talked about how, like, good grain is referring to people that have believed in Jesus Christ and accepted them as their Savior and recognized that they were sinners and needed Him. And the bad grain was people that hadn't done that. And so, right as we were like starting this part of the conversation, it started to rain. And in Cambodia, like it's like a monsoon rain. Like it's like super heavy. It feels like it's gonna flood the whole place, and then it'll just stop. Like it'll be like 10 minutes of really heavy rain and then stop. But in this particular instance, it didn't stop. It was raining for like 45 minutes, and I was reading in a room like on the bottom floor of the building we were in. They had like glass doors, and so the rain was so loud. It was hitting the rooftops, and it was like I could hardly hear like these poor girls that could hardly speak English, and they could hardly hear me, who hardly understood English, and it was just like God, like this conversation came up, and they're like so interested in knowing more about Jesus and like what's good grain and what's bad grain and why do I need God? And then you send rain, like where we can hardly hear each other. And it was just like, what are you doing? But I just had this feeling like we have to press on. Like, even though we're like not even reading at the right time, there's two people, like it's raining like crazy, like we have to keep going. And so God put it on my heart to show the bridge diagram. So that's the diagram where there's like a mountain on each side, and we're on one side, God is on the other side, and we can't get to Him. We're separated, which is sin. And so in the illustration, eventually you draw a cross in the middle, and that shows how Jesus bridged the gap between us and God so we could have a relationship with Him. And when I explained that to them, like this one girl, who understood a little more English, like looked at me, and her face, I'll never forget it, was like, how could I not have known this? Like I just got this feeling from her that she was just like bewildered by the fact that she had never heard about Jesus and what He did for us. And that was astonishing to me because we live in a country where we at least have a general idea of who Jesus is, and she had no idea. And she was translating for the other student there that didn't speak a lot of English. So the other student also heard the gospel that day, which would not have happened if they had not both been there, which was designed by God. So the rain finally, well, actually the rain kept going, even like to the end of our session. And I was asking her, so what do you think about this? Like after seeing this, this picture of what Jesus did for us, what do you think about it? And she's like, I didn't know before, but I think I need God. And I was just like, wow, like God, you showed up in the rain and like in the crazy schedule, like you showed up. And she's thinking more about her faith instead of just doing what her family's done. And in Cambodia, the chain of Buddhism is so heavy on the people there. It's like if you're not Buddhist, you're betraying your family, you're betraying your country. And so, anyways, it was just really cool how God showed up in a moment where we could have just stopped, but He like nudged me to keep going and gave me the words to say and the picture to draw so that these girls heard the gospel. And neither of them accepted that day, but I'm really confident that they at least know now, and they at least have a choice, where before they didn't have a choice between, believing in Jesus and practicing Buddhism. They didn't know about Jesus, so that choice wasn't there, but now they at least have that choice. And so that was a really powerful moment.
So I wasn't planning on talking, but how many of you have struggled with choosing your major? So that was me. I don't know how many of you know me, but I came here at 16 with the early college program. And so I was in high school freshman and sophomore year, and they're always telling me, like, you have time, you don't need to figure it out yet. Then I get here, and they're like, okay, you have 2 weeks to choose your major. Crap. I have no idea what I'm going to do. Thinking maybe graphic design, maybe business, but I had no idea. I didn't see any of those being something that I wanted to do for a long time. And so I started praying, and during those 2 weeks, I took a trip with my dad. We did a road trip, and so we were just flipping stations, and I hear on the radio very clearly, it was pastor, and just flipping, and it starts off, But what does the Lord require of you? But to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And I heard almost audibly, that is what I want you to do. And what? And so what I was thinking is law. Law? Really? Does not seem like something I can do, would be good at. That seems hard. It seems like it's going to be a lot of work. I just wanted to get my degree done with, start off. Like, I didn't want to go to graduate school. I didn't want to pay for law school. Law? That's hard. But then, so I was still questioning it, and at this point, I was still really struggling with hearing God's voice and knowing if it was God or if it was just something in my head. And so I had little hints pop up over and over and over again. And one of them is my mom's, her business partnered with Hope for Justice. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of that, but it's a nonprofit Christian organization based out of Alabama that fights against human trafficking. So they help rescue victims and then help restore their lives. So I heard about that. I was like, oh, I really want to do that. Like, wouldn't that be cool to be a part of something that's rescuing people and helping them restore their lives? And so that's how I decided to do law. And it might not be a big testimony, but it was the first time I heard God's voice and actually listened to it. So.
Holy smokes, Mom. So I by no means didn't think I'd be up here tonight. But as some of you may have known, I experienced a great tragedy this summer. I lost my father in a car accident, and God has never been more present in my life since. And that's only because of Him. And I guess I have to start where it all began, which is in this very room, this time of the year, a year ago. And I approached one of my classmates, Annie, said, hey, I hadn't found God yet. I haven't shared that with her yet, but I was like, hey, I saw you were part of this house, so you might have to show up. Came here and listened to the word, listened to the community, and was completely blown away. It was a couple weeks later, I was baptized. And I didn't really know what it meant to have a community, to have that church, to have people that are really there for you, and to have God on your side. Before I came to Christ, my vice was alcohol. As I'm sure some of you know, and I'm very open about that. I drank because I thought that was the cool thing to do. That's how I could cope with who I was, which is a pretty cool guy now I know. And now to fast forward. So I experienced this great tragedy, and within an hour, I talked to Troy, I talked to James, and I had God on my side in that hour. I haven't drank since, and I mean any alcohol. And so, thank you. It's not about that. It's about what God has done for me, what God has done for us, and a huge tragedy in my life brought me so much closer to our Lord. And that is what I've come to see, what I've looked to. I didn't expect that. I expected to revert back to something I didn't want to be anymore, but I didn't know that God's love was so overwhelming. The community, the friends, the family that came. And also, too, it was amazing the conversations I was having. I would have friends reach out to me like, hey, Dave, sorry, what happened? You want to get a drink? I'm like, no, I'm not having a drink. And I would tell them about Christ. I would tell them about how I came to Christ and how it was important to me and my father's memory also to not have alcohol anymore. And that while hopefully no one has a tragedy like that in their lives, I hope that the story of what great tragedy can do for you helps you come closer to God.
Hello, everybody. My name is Beth. Some of you have already heard the story / experienced it. But last year on spring break, I went to New Mexico with a bunch of other awesome people. And a ton of really cool things happened. We saw God in a ton of things, but I'm just going to talk about one. So we ended up leading a bunch of church services. We didn't know that's what we were going to be doing at all when we came there, but it just kind of happened, and it was really cool. But we led one it was like a rehab facility, like for people struggling with like addictions and stuff like that. So it was kind of nervous going in, like don't really know what their like reaction will be, and if we'll really make a difference. And for me especially, like I feel like I can't relate to them, like I don't know what they're going through, and so anyway, so we went and we did the service, and then we had this skit called the Everything Skit that we did at the end. And it was one of the most awesome times we had done the Everything Skit. I mean, every time was pretty awesome, but that time especially was really cool. And then afterwards, we were like, hey, because it's pretty powerful, it brings up a lot of issues that people have, like it brings up alcohol, and even topics like suicide. So we asked them, we're like, hey, if anyone wants to come up and pray with us. And I was just so amazed because I'm like, this is not me. This is not us at all. This is completely God just using us. And it was so cool to see God in, everything we did in New Mexico, but just seeing like Him move in their hearts through us just being willing to be there. So yeah, that was really cool.
I'm a freshman, so many probably don't know who I am. But I went on a mission trip my junior year of high school. It's called LTC. I don't know if any of you guys know what that is, but it stands for Lead the Cause. And we did it in Washington, D.C. And we would just like go out and share the gospel with random people like near the monuments. So people who are like vacationing and trying to have a good time, you go up to them and you're like, hi, who are you? What's your faith? And most of the time they would look at you and be like, and I got paired up one day with my friend Jacob, who really likes metal, which I am not into in any way, shape, or form, and he also doesn't like to talk. So that left a lot of the talking up to me. And we were we were near the Lincoln Memorial, and he stops me. And he's like, that guy right there, I want to talk to him. And this guy had a ton of tattoos, and he looked so angry. And I looked at Jacob, and I said, really? And he was like, yeah, that tattoo is from a metal band that I know, it's gonna be so cool. I was like, you've got this then. It's all you go for it. And so he went up to the guy, and he started talking to him, and the guy, immediately started attacking Christian faith. And he had this girl standing next to him, so I was like, okay, Jacob can deal with that, and I'm gonna talk to her. And I was really nervous, because she definitely wasn't into it either. Oh my goodness, it was so nerve-wracking. And I was just thinking, I'm just gonna talk to her, and I'm not even gonna bring up Jesus. And Jacob can talk to this guy, and if he wants to bring up Jesus, he can, but I'm not going to, because I don't want to risk my life. And so I started talking to her, and we started talking about surface level things, and then God finally started shoving me, not nudging me, shoving me into the direction of actually opening up to this girl, because she started talking about her backstory. So I was like, oh, well, okay, this is fine. I was like, and now I'm a Christian. And she just looked at me like, really? I was like, yeah. You know that group of people that you guys were just bashing? Yeah, we're with them. Hi. And then, so we were done talking, and because we had to go, but Jacob was still talking to this guy, and I stood near him. And as I was standing near him, Jacob started opening up to the guy that, we were actually here with the group of Christians. And you could just see on his face that he was so shocked that, Christian people could be normal people. We're not weirdos. We don't all blast like Christian radio and like some of us do, but like no, like we're not just weird, we're not like unrelatable, we're not hard to get to, like we're just normal people, and we like normal people things, and we all have a backstory, so it was really cool.
Okay, so my name is Hannah. I'm also a freshman, so I don't really know anybody. But thank you. So last fall, I think it was like right around this time, my step grandpa got diagnosed with prostate cancer, and so he's my step grandpa on my stepdad's side, but he's been my grandpa for like 12 years now. So we're pretty close to like that side of my family. And up until the beginning of summer, he was handling it really well. He didn't even have to go do chemo because it was not at like any stage where he was like super sick. And he's retired, so he was just kind of hanging out at home and everything. And then the beginning of summer, he started getting a little bit sicker, and so he was going to the hospital more. But nobody was really that worried about like anything happening because he was a pretty healthy guy. And then in the beginning of August, my mom texted me that he had gotten rushed to the hospital, and they were running some tests and everything, and it wasn't like a big deal, but she said if we wanted to come visit him in the next week or so, that would be okay. And then she texted the next day, said that he was probably going to be going home, so we're like, okay, it's just another routine thing. And then the following week, we got a text that they were bringing him back to the hospital, and after a few hours, they weren't going to be sending him home, they were moving him to hospice, which was a huge shock to everybody. We didn't expect it to like come on that fast. And so we went to the hospital to visit him and spend some time with him. It was really good to kind of hang out, just say goodbye because we kind of knew what was coming. But one thing that I've been struggling with was that he was not a Christian and my grandma was. And my grandma went to church every Sunday and my grandpa would never go with him because it just wasn't his thing. He didn't really do God or whatever. And that's kind of how my stepdad is as well. He doesn't really do the whole God. So the pastor was giving like the message at the funeral. And as he was talking, he started bringing up the fact that he had visited my grandpa in the hospital. And so he was talking about visiting my grandpa in the hospital, and he said that over the course of the week they were visiting. Wow. And they were kind of just talking and like hanging out, and he wasn't trying to like push anything on my grandpa. But then my grandpa just started like asking him questions and just like wanting to know why it was that the pastor did what he did, why he believed what he believed, and I think it was 5 days before he passed away, he ended up accepting Jesus into his life. And I was just sitting there at the funeral, and it was just a very amazing feeling because I knew that my grandma had been speaking to him for years and years and years, every single Sunday, every single day, talking to him about God. And he never wanted to hear it, like from the woman that he was married to. And so I guess it was just really encouraging to me because, like I said, my stepdad is not a Christian. And whenever I talk about God with him, he's very like non-receptive to it, and it just like worries me and gives me a lot of anxiety that what if something happens and he still doesn't know. But I think it's just a good encouragement to if you like have that person that you feel like isn't responding, that you never know like who else might be able to just say in a different way, speak it to them in a different way, and so just to really be hopeful about the fact that God is working in every person's life, and even if you're not seeing it, someone else may be able to look at it from a different angle and just give it to them in a different way that they're going to be able to respond.
My name is Jessica. I'm also a freshman. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about the story how I got baptized, and just bear with me. I'm really not a great public speaker, but so my sophomore year of high school, I went on a mission trip, and about a month after the mission trip, I was at church with two of my really good friends who also went on the mission trip with me, and so I had never gotten baptized. I had been thinking about it for a while, and while we went on a mission trip to Guatemala. While we were in Guatemala, I was just like really thinking about it and praying about it, and I was like, this is something that I know I need to do, something that I really want to do. And so while I was at church with my two friends, we sat in the way back of the church, and I was never really like I said, like I'm not a public speaker, like normally I don't really like get out of my comfort zone, but I knew that that was just what God wanted me to do. He wanted me to really get out of my comfort zone and go get baptized. And so I was sitting there in the back with my friends, and we're sitting there, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't really want to go up there. Like, I had just got this new shirt that I was in love with. I was like, I really don't want to get this shirt wet. Like, I don't have an extra change of clothes. I was like, I'm wearing makeup. My waterproof, or my mascara isn't waterproof. Like, what's gonna happen? I'm gonna get dunked, and my makeup's gonna go all over my face. I was just freaking out. I was thinking of all of these things. And as I'm sitting there in the back of my church thinking all of these things, my pastor is up on the stage saying, if you don't have an extra shirt, we have an extra shirt. You need makeup wipes, we've got makeup wipes. He's like, if you need extra underwear, we've got extra underwear. So I was like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna do it. And so I was sitting there next to my friend, and I whispered, I was like, I think I'm gonna get baptized. And she was like, wait, what? So I was like, yeah, and I just got up and I went to the back, and I ended up getting baptized that day, and